Laura, welcome. Santosh, welcome. Ben, welcome. Harold, welcome. How do you pronounce your name? Alsar? Welcome. Max. Hi, Max. And Ron. There is absolutely no difference between you and I. There is no difference between you and I. I know it. Maybe you don't. Each of us has different talents, different history, different psychological history, different bringing up, different education. For example, I'm a crappy tennis player. I'm sure half of you are better tennis players than I am. I'm a really crappy golfer. I think everybody's better than I am at golf. Max is better than me at physics. Enrique is better at me at accounting. Dinesh is better than me at everything. The only thing is, I've wasted my life investigating myself. The only thing I have to say for or show for doing that is I know who I am. I know myself. That's what I teach you guys, or try to teach you guys, is self-realization. And by self-realization, I mean the whole gamut of what you are. From the transcendental aspect of being the witness, the ultimate witness, Ramana's goal, Robert Adams' goal, Nisargadatta's goal, to all the other aspects of the manifest self, including the body, including the mind, and most especially including emotions. Hi, Matthew. Good. Then there's the subtle body, which is one's sense of presence, through which the energies run in the subtle body, Kundalini energies, and the awakening energies of Shakti as it wakes up your body and your sense of presence. Then there is the state of unknowing, like when you fall asleep. There's no more consciousness, no more I am either. And then there's Turiya, the deepest level of self. Some call it the love bliss body. Some call it the fourth state of consciousness. But it's the source of Shakti. It's the source of the feminine. It's the source of the movement of the creation. Ultimately, the witness is identified as Shiva, pure awareness, without any object. Together they make up the universe, and they are one. Shakti moves the universe and creates the universe. Shiva observes it. And most importantly in all those experiences is the feeling of self. I am. I am. Self has two aspects. The entirety of the manifest world, as well as your self-awareness. The other aspect is the witness. And you can only realize the witness is there because you're witnessing all the manifest world. And you know that there's a witness witnessing it. It's just innate knowledge that becomes surer and surer the more you practice. Now, I started practicing in 1967. That's when I left home and Went into the desert, then to Philip Keplo's Zen Center in New York, then to Mount Baldy, and after that with Thich Thich Nhat at the International Buddhist Meditation Center, and with Sun San Sunim, the Korean Zen master, Kozan, a Japanese Zen master, Izumi, a Japanese Zen master. And from also I spent a stint at Muktananda's, and Muktananda was talking about loving oneself. And I left Zen because it was so cold and lacked emotion. But I couldn't love myself because I didn't know what self was. I lived, I used the word I existed, I operated, I functioned in everyday life, I got drunk, I ate too much, ate too little, exercised. But for the life of me, I didn't know what the self was. And in 1995, when I was taking a shower, I had my shower experience of awakening. When looking inside, all that I saw was emptiness, and I realized for the first time that there was no object, no entity inside of me called the self. There's nothing there. And then a few weeks later, the second awakening, which was that even consciousness is an illusion. States of consciousness come to me like clouds or fog. And they cover me, and for a while I'm aware of consciousness. And this consciousness has different levels or states: waking, dreaming, sleep. Sleep is also known as the causal body, where you go from knowing to unknowing. The passages from knowing to unknowing, and then once again into knowing. The causal body is very, very important. Its importance is that it shows that there's a continuity of consciousness even when there's no awareness of any objects. When we sleep and we wake up, we can tell whether we've slept 8 hours or not, or 3 hours, or 5 hours. We can check the clock, but the clock usually confirms what we feel. Something in us has told us that the time has passed, although we were aware of nothing. My cat is driving me crazy. She's playing all over. Hey. She's looking innocent. So the causal body, that of knowing nothing, is very important. Also, meditating for many years, you develop a feeling of emptiness inside. You look inside, and at first you see nothing but darkness, and it's heavy. But after a few years of meditation, it becomes light and translucent and vast and lighted by the light of consciousness. All this is a prelude to self-realization. In 1995, I lost any vestige of self whatsoever. Awakening with Robert. Now that's intensity. That's Radha. I lost any sense of self in 1995, and it wasn't until 2009, because of my love for a person, that my sense of self exploded out, not immediately, but over a period of 6 months. And since then, it's been at the center of my attention, always. But as you become more and more aware of yourself, the transcendental aspects of spirituality seem to mean less and less. Once again, the energies course through your body and your sense of presence, and you feel alive. Love courses through your body. Bliss and the energies vast energies. Sometimes it feels like electricity, sometimes it feels like flowing streams of love. Sometimes your whole body vibrates, sometimes parts of your body vibrates. Sometimes your legs become alive, sometimes the energy moves into your brain and you have a brain orgasm. But you definitely regain your body. Your body comes back. This cat is nuts. Yes, the thundering of little feet. So, then I began making discoveries, not so much in me, but in watching people that came to me for help or for understanding of some sort. That's her again. Often spirituality is used as an escape from feelings. Michael, can you come in here and take her out? I can't concentrate.
Then I can't concentrate. No.
Michael's trying to get her. Is that even on Facebook, or especially on Facebook, you notice it, people use spirituality as a way to escape conflict, whether it's inner conflict or external conflict, negative emotions, especially depression or anxiety, or bipolar experiences of going from elation to depression. And once they get a separation from these emotions, whether it's by observing them or processing them in some way, like, what is that, the release technique, Sedona method, processing emotions, depression. Will you let go? Can you let go of this emotion? Will you let go? And when? Or processing by some other technique. You process the negative emotions, but after a while there's no positive emotions either. As soon as they arise, they're snuffed off. Now somebody's, Harold, your microphone is on, and so is Matthew's, and I hear some feedback from somewhere. Okay. So, after people have spent 2 or 3 years, 4 years of learning how to process emotions or merely observe them and be unmoved by them, they have obtained some degree of peace, and they think they've attained some sort of spirituality. But what they've really done is learn how to turn off their feelings. And they've escaped being human. So many are left empty, left in that emptiness of the inner emptiness, especially Zen people. Emotions are to be observed and are not felt. And after a while, the lack of feeling is experienced as a lacking. That's why I went to Muktananda, because they were talking about emotion and loving. They didn't say how to find the self, how to realize the self. It's easy to say to love yourself, but what is the self? And the key is, any sort of spirituality has to be balanced by a self-love and loving others while you're doing it. After you isolate inside of yourself a feeling of self, you have to try to love that self. Feel it deeply. Relax your body. Relax your heart. Relax your palate. And just feel the self wherever you feel it, usually in the heart, sometimes between the eyebrows. And coax it into you. Coax the love into you. Whisper to it. Come to me. Invite it. Come to me. And if you're lucky enough and you love someone or something a lot, think of that person or that cat or that dog or that thing. Feel the love you feel for it. Feel that love then is inside of you somewhere, usually in the heart area. That love you feel for the object. Feel it inside of you. Now, while you're feeling that love, instead of thinking of the person, feel the self at the same time that you've isolated and you found. And love yourself. You'll notice an immense difference in your practice at that point. Immense power, immense depth in your own self as it sort of comes alive and brings you life. As it comes alive, it brings your body alive. But then all kinds of emotions start coming up. Jealousy, rage, anxiety, fear, helplessness, and the one so many people fight, a sense of neediness. All these emotions begin to pop up in various situations. And nobody really wants to own them. They think it's unspiritual to be needy. It's unspiritual to be depressed. It's unspiritual to get jealous over somebody. But it's not. My spirituality, the way I'm talking about it, is seeing and owning everything that is you. Everything. You don't try to become a special person with no jealousy. You don't try to become a special person with no neediness. Total independence. Because with neediness, there's the potential of loss. And with the potential of loss, there's the potential of enormous pain. So from fear of pain, people try to destroy the sense of neediness inside of themselves. Also the sense of jealousy. It's not spiritual to be jealous. You should have, what they call it, unconditional love. Whether the person or the thing comes or goes, you should have the same love that's not bothered by the thing going. Well, shit, that's not love. If you love something to the degree that if it leaves you, you're still not bothered by it, that love is pretty shitty. That is really dipshit love. If you're going to love with all your heart, total commitment, total surrender. It's the only way that that intense love will arise in you. That love that is so intense entices the self to show itself to you. You who is the 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60-year-old person that's been searching for yourself or searching for enlightenment. The intense love in you, directed towards yourself, causes that self to arise in you. For me and for many others, it's like an intense white, brilliant light arising from the gut, flowing upwards into the heart, of overwhelming intensity, 1,000,000 volts, the light of 1,000 suns. It goes up through your head and out through your whole body. And the power is so great that you just fall to your knees because of the intensity. There's such bliss and such humility that you feel at the same time because the power is so great. You see it as the other, as God. It's too great to be you. You can't believe it's you. And then one day you recognize that the God that you've experienced is really you too. It's your deeper self. This is the human aspect of the self. In other words, the God, the divine, the Shakti, manifesting through you is manifesting through a human being. Spiritual people say you should recognize that it's just an impersonal happening that's playing through you. But I say that's wrong. I say own it as you're doing. You and God dancing together are creating this reality. It's not just him or her acting through an impersonal you. I want you to feel that personal. I want you to feel intensely yourself, because when the self exposes itself to you, although it has an immense energy and blows you away, it doesn't destroy the small self. The small self expands to encompass all the new grandeur and energy and love and bliss that arises within you. That's why it's so easy to become narcissistic like Adida and think that you're an incarnation of Shiva or some other God, the greatest guru that ever lived, the greatest master that ever lived, because the power that manifests through you makes you feel so much at home and like the owner of the entire universe. But that phase passes. That phase passes. But it's intensely inflammatory. It makes you feel really like you are the owner of the world. You are God. Fortunately, that phase passes. And you become ordinary again. You become more humble again. But you know everything out there is your creation in a sense. Everything that you see, feel, hear, and touch comes from your mind, from your aliveness. If you weren't alive in this place right here, there would be no perception of the world. And in that sense, that the sentience is within you. The external world that you see out there is within you also. But spiritual people, a lot of them make the same mistake. They say, you can't end or change the external world except by changing yourself, because the external world flows from you. You are that external world. Well, that's true. But that doesn't mean that the external worlds and the sentience of, for example, Harold or Nadine in Germany, they have their own inner and outer world. And I don't deny their existence by saying that all the world flows from me. All the world flows from Harold too, and from Nadine, and from Matthew, and from Dinesh. Yes, you create the world you live in, but that doesn't deny that there's an external world that we all share. And everybody has that same external world to a certain degree. There are those on Facebook that say, as long as you have any kind of division or aggression in yourself, you'll see it in the external world. But if you don't judge and you accept everything and everybody as they are, in your world that you see, there'll be no violence. In other words, they say it's an inside job. Just change yourself so that you're purely or fully equanimous in all situations, and the external world will reflect your equanimity and nothing will disturb you. Well, that's easy to do. All you have to do is retreat to the impersonal watcher. And there's no affect. There's no feeling the terror of an animal about to be killed in a slaughterhouse. There's no feeling of compassion for a whale about to be harpooned by a Japanese whaling ship. There's no compassion for somebody dying of cancer. And if you don't have emotions like that, you won't be motivated to do anything to change the world. It is all too easy to spend so much time inside of ourselves, observing the mind, observing the self even, observing emotions, observing the body, the pains in the body, the energies in the body, that you become so narcissistic, so self-absorbed, you fail to see the pain in the world anymore. And even if you do see the pain in the world, you don't know what to do about it because you spend so much time inside of yourself. You've mastered yourself, but you know nothing of the external world. And in fact, you may try to use internal methods of contemplation or prayer to affect changes in the world, rather than directly change by, for example, going into a hospice and serving there, or going to a surgical ward and volunteering, or going to India for the children there, or go to a leprosarium and helping out, or giving $500 to a charity, or helping in some way directly, physically, with your own body and mind. You pray that God will take care of things for you. Or that if you have the right mindset, you can cure the faults of the world. In other words, it diverts direct action into internal action, which probably is pretty ineffective the way most people do it. You're used to doing everything inside, watching your feelings, making them grow, making them go away, stopping thinking, starting thinking, looking for the self. You become obsessed with you. And people start saying, you're pretty selfish, you're just concerned about yourself. And it's true to an extent. Inner exploration does make you narcissistic and self-obsessed until the path is completed. And you do miss the cues out there. You do feel a loss of compassion. Many people do. Or you feel like, as Robert would say, a cold fish. You've given away your feelings by observing them or processing them. So I'm trying to tell most of you, a lot of you, that don't ever let go of the external world and your responsibilities there. You have to remain balanced. Even if the most important thing in your life is self-realization, recognize the others around you and their needs. Recognize the animals around you and their needs. Recognize that billions are being killed every year for food just in the United States. 10 billion animals are killed in the United States for food each year. Plus the Japanese whaling fleet is killing several hundred whales every year. And then, what is this, in Nepal? Every 3 or 4 years they have a festival where 40,000 or 400,000 animals are slaughtered, and then the people eat them. It goes on and on and on and on. How can this be? Maybe that's why you're in spirituality. You say, how can this be, this world? It's so corrupt. Politicians are corrupt. There's murders every day, 600 in Los Angeles last year. When's it going to stop? I can't stop it. I see no way to stop it. So I'm going to go inside and become self-realized. And when I'm self-realized, then it won't bother me so much anymore. But the more you feel the self, the more you're feeling emotions, and the more you're connected to people. And that's what self-realization brings, is going from the absolute of being the observer, re-entering your body, becoming human, feeling your sentience as alive and pulsating, as energetic, as being filled with energies, kundalini, and energies going in every different direction, bliss and love. But you can be so filled with love going on inside of yourself, you fail to love the people outside of you. There's one student of mine that loved a lot, and then she said, human love is no good. I love myself now. And she became the most ornery person you could think of, always shouting her own glory and how Shakti had chosen her as a vessel for its manifestation. And now she has been graced. She has no idea how it came to her, this self-realization. It's just grace, and she loves herself and she loves grace, missing other people entirely. And that's why I guess I have to say I agree so much with Dia, that we have to go into the world in a real way. Look around you. What can be better if you just interfered a little? If you just stirred the pot a little? If you went, for example, to city hall meetings where they were talking about animal issues, and you spoke up for the animals. Or if you went to a local shelter twice a week or twice a month and helped clean up, volunteered at the shelter. Or you started feeding some outdoor cats and maybe get them a home after a while. Or you go to the shanty towns where the homeless people are lined up, like Main Street and those other places in Los Angeles, and you buy four sleeping bags and you give them out to homeless people that don't have sleeping bags. You look around your neighborhood where the homeless people may be. You bring them some food. You build an outdoor shelter for cats or dogs that are caught outside. A little dog house made out of cardboard or something. And you put a heating pad inside with a long cord to your house. Every act of kindness like that brings you closer to your own self. You'll feel it. It's like when you give up eating meat. There's a wave that goes through you, sort of like of being graced, that a heavy burden has been lifted, a burden of guilt. And for months after you give up eating meat, you feel like, wow, it's so much cleaner now, my life. There's so much less killing in it. So as part of your sadhana, as part of your journey to the self, Don't ignore your people in your world. The people who love you and depend on you, whether it's an animal or a person. At the same time, don't ignore yourself. Love yourself. Locate yourself. Love yourself. Do a lot of chanting. And when you feel the chanting, when you feel the bliss of the chanting, direct it towards your heart where the self is. And the self will grow. It grows stronger and stronger and expands to a sense of presence. Within your body and around your body is a sort of subtle aura all around you, within which the energies flow, the bliss flows. And you can actually do something. You have the strength and the courage and the stability to make some real efforts that will help people in the world. And that itself creates another positive feedback pattern. Just the act of doing kindness, of giving, of surrendering, of helping, aids in self-realization. Robert didn't say anything about that, but it's true. Ramana didn't say anything about that in Karma Yoga, but it's true. Okay, let's have another. At this time, we're investigating Mount Baldy and other possible venues for the retreat in April. It'll either be for 5 days during the week or an entire 7 days. I don't know whether anybody out there has had any experience in putting together a retreat or group meetings, arranging all the different kinds of arrangements that have to be made. If there is, we could use your help. Email me if you have the expertise, if you have the time, etc. I don't know how much time it's going to take, but I don't do these kinds of things well. I haven't filed an income tax return in 2 years. It's too complicated for me now. My brain doesn't work that way. I can't get any new programs. I can't figure out how to use them anymore. It's just like my brain doesn't want to concentrate anymore unless it's on my own writing. I've become totally dysfunctional. Ask Karima. Ask Michael. The laziest of lazy. By the way, Nadine, in Germany, I understand you may be having a hard time now, but you're part of a big family here. Come on camera sometime. Let us see you. Have you meet Harold, who's in Europe too, as well as Max in Germany. Harold is in Brussels, I believe, right, Harold? So you have a lot of family in Europe too that you could talk to fairly easily. That's in your time zone, as well as Dia in the UK. We want you to be with us. We want you to feel well. So, those are the 2 items of business. Are there any questions? Yes, Dinesh. Well, let's look at it this way. Anything you do as a spiritual practice, including inviting the emotions, coaxing them, paying attention to them, relaxing into them, is being done with the mind. The mind is put into the service of discovering emotions. So in a sense, you're not letting the mind go at all. You're using the mind to uncover feelings in other parts of yourself. Now, that the feelings are going, it's kind of natural. It's natural that after they've become strong, they burn themselves out until you learn how to completely get out of the way of the feelings and let the feelings come into you totally. And even then, after they come through you totally, they will disappear. There's nothing permanent in emotions. Now, the more you practice letting them into yourself, the stronger you can allow them to be. And you gain emotional muscle, so to speak, to be able to tolerate bigger and bigger feelings, bigger and bigger fear, bigger and bigger anxiety, bigger anger, bigger love. It's a process of expanding the emotional muscle, because when you were a baby you had no control over those emotions. You just cried and cried, or whatever it was, you expressed it somehow, or you acted out, or you did something. But we lose touch with that primitive ability to perceive and express emotions so easily. And it's a hard thing to go back to be able to be as open as you once were 30 years ago to your feelings. So it's not easy, and it takes time. But I don't think it's that the mind goes away and then the emotions go away, because just the attempt to bring the feelings into the spotlight and to maintain them is a mental effort, is an effort of the mind. It could be that the mind says, well, I want you to pay attention to me, and refuses to continue to let the feelings to come in. But I think it's just a matter of practice and perseverance. Nothing is done overnight in this area. And for the people on the camera, Dinesh was saying that he uses the mind to focus on the emotion and to play with it and to let it expand, and it expands for a time. But then he says that when the mind leaves, the emotions seem to leave too and diminish. And I was just commenting on that. That's what this exchange was about. The camera behind in that direction is not tied into this into the computer, so I have to narrate for it. Are there any other questions? Nadine, do you have any comments you'd like to leave, or questions? You can type them in. Imra, any questions? Oh yes, Enrique. How's what? I was thinking about it, and I don't think I'm ready for it twice a week yet. As a once a week thing, it's sort of special, but when you go to twice a week, people start not showing up. There's not enough coming. I mean, if we were consistently over 30 on Sunday, I would think about doing it, but we haven't been. This is the first time we've been over 30 ever on a Sunday. And if it keeps up, then we can start adding a second day. But typically, even what's his name up in San Francisco, the energy guru, I forget what his name is. He has 80 people on Wednesday nights at 6 o'clock. We've tried 6 o'clock. We never get more than 14 or 15, 16 on a Saturday night. We're trying Sunday. We're getting 30. We'll just see if it builds. If it builds, then we can add a second day. But the hard part is, when would it be? Would it be on Thursday like Robert had it? And what time would it be? So that Matthew can come and everybody in Europe can come at the same time without it being too late in Europe. Of course, he could quit work early on Thursday, or take the computer into the principal's office. Just kidding. Any other questions? Yes, Imran. Yes. Okay. I could find no self within me. So I looked around, looking deliberately for a self, an I am. Not where the I am arose, the I thought arose, or the I thought disappeared. Not looking for the source, but instead of looking for the concept I was looking for a feeling of I in the area of the heart. And I first felt it as a tingling in about inside, about that long, as a tingle, like a little thing of electricity going on inside around my heart. And I just focused on that. Focused on that. And let the tingling grow. I felt love for it. I felt affection for it. I experimented with it. I spent a lot of time on it. And it gradually turned into the feeling of I am. So that's how I constructed it. It's not as if I deliberately put two blocks together and it came out with an equation. It was a matter of attending to that little spark of existence. The only thing I could notice within me that wasn't after many, many years of meditation, everything inside is emptiness. It's just a lucid emptiness lit by the light of consciousness. Everybody gets this way after they've done meditation a long time. So when I look inside, there was nothing there except this lighted consciousness, and gradually this little electricity was found in there, the little electric current, which I focused on and grew, so that I developed an internal sense of presence of the I am, which gradually spread throughout my body and into the energetic body, the subtle body, and contained all the energies and the sentience, the life force, as well as just the raw ability to see consciousness and to be aware of consciousness. Now that ability to be aware of consciousness, that's what Nisargadatta calls the absolute. But that which is aware of consciousness also becomes aware of the I am within consciousness. It's that sense of self. And we all, let's say, have it, but we're not aware of it. I had it constructed, so to speak, but it's like it may be a function of the mind to create the self. Like some say it's a neurological principle. The brain creates a self. It's a selfing thing. But I didn't have it in me. I did not have a sense of self. From the time I started looking in 1967 until it was destroyed by Robert's method in 1995 totally, until 2009, there was no sense of self. It was just emptiness. So I created the self by focusing on that sensation of I exist. I can feel something in there that is me. And at first it didn't feel like me, but after a while, with the energy pumping in, it became more and more intrusive into my awareness until I saw that's me. But when it really started unfolding is after I had fallen in love, and the love energy was flowing and flowing upwards from the gut, upwards through the heart into the head, and gushing out, that the sense of self really began to manifest as all kinds of energies, as light and as power from within, until one day it exploded and just took over me, and it happened over and over and over again. But it started with a curiosity of looking within to the heart area and finding anything there that I could, and that was unusual. And that was that little electric current on the right side, where most people begin feeling it. Some people feel it first in the third eye, the sense of self. But that's a heady kind of thing. That's not a feeling at all. That's a visual phenomenon. But this is a tactile phenomenon, a kinesthetic kind of feeling. Didn't Nadine write anything I can't see? I deeply thank you for your love and care, Ed. I'm just not able to talk right now. Great, Nadine. Bart is in Brussels also. John Hanna says, Ed's a slave to love. Beautiful. Three words. First word, 2 syllables. Pantomime. Anybody else? Any questions? So, Dinesh, it is inclusive. It includes everything. No trying to escape. It's embodied spirituality, or re-embodied. I was disembodied. I was cast out of my body by the practices of Who Am I, as recommended by Robert and Ramana. I was cast out of my body into the transpersonal, into the infinite, into the witness. I just had an internal emptiness that was lit by the light of consciousness. Everybody thinks this is so great, but after a while it's pretty boring. There was no feelings there. There were no feelings until a human came into my life and reawakened my heart. After that, everything started pouring. That emptiness was filled with love. It was filled with bliss. It was filled with energies. It was filled with a sense of responsibility. I am my brother's keeper. I am a good shepherd. I will be a good shepherd. Every sentient being is my brother, from the worm and the moth all the way up to Dinesh and beyond. Except for Matthew. We are all brothers and sisters. We share. Now, what do they mean? Especially on Facebook, they say we are all one. And they kind of confuse it. They say there's only one consciousness, and we are that. But what does that mean? Realistically, we all share the same characteristic of consciousness. Each one of us is more or less alike in how we experience the world. A lot of it is conditioning by the way we grew up. But the base state, our beingness, is the same for all. It's probably the same for the worm and for a moth. Each sentient being guards itself and guards its own life. And outside of predators, all sentient beings love every other sentient being. We love each other. I mean, who can't look at a kitten and not be moved? Who can't look at a little puppy and be moved? Who can't be looked at an old crippled man or woman and not be moved? Innately inside, we want to love and protect all living things, except our landlords and Wall Street and a few other exemptions. But we're built that way. Sentience loves sentience. So let's go with it. Act it out. As you're realizing yourself, and yourself gets more and more powerful, it's able to reach out and do things in the world in a literal, physical way of contributing to the world, as well as an internal way, like through prayer, or through using healing energies, or using intentionality to co-create a different reality. But we're all in this together, and I hope we remain as a family. I hope we get an ashram soon. I was looking at one place in Arizona. It's a retreat center near Sedona, but not in Sedona, probably 40 miles from Sedona, that had 3 cabins, 2 small ones and 1 larger cabin. and it's fairly cheap for a retreat there, like $45 a day for food and board. But not only that, it was on sale for $250,000, which is good, but it's very far from a city. And it's great to have a retreat center, but if you don't have an ashram inside of a city, you're lost. You'll never get enough people to come. You need an ashram inside the city where it's accessible. We're also looking at retreat areas right here in the Los Angeles area. So we'll see what happens. I love you all. Let's do 10 minutes now of silent meditation. And this week, who will lead it? Dinesh, you'll lead it this week. Or who led it last time? Who led it? Was it Matthew or Dinesh? Was you, Enrique? Oh, Dinesh? Okay. Let's have Matthew then lead it this week. 10 minutes. All look at Matthew. See his happy, charming face. Begin it.